For almost 40 years, frontman Jon Bon Jovi has been the lead singer of one of the world's most successful rock bands.
Jon Bon Jovi and Bon Jovi the band is massive and is iconic.
Hey, settle down.
Bon Jovi's album sales topped 130 million, with hits like You Give Love a Bad Name and Livin' on a Prayer.
It is a working class anthem. There are anthems of hope.
No matter how big the venue, I've found ways to connect.
But while most frontmen are by nature notoriously wild, unpredictable, and full of excess,
whether it's Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat or Steven Tyler from Aerosmith snorting a whole feed bag of cocaine, Jon Bon Jovi is treating being a rock and roll star as a job.
Instead of living the rock star life, Jon Bon Jovi is first and foremost a businessman.
There was just a guy that was focused, determined, and committed to it.
Jon Bon Jovi is an excellent CEO. He runs a corporation, he knows the corporation.
Only his passion for business almost destroyed the very thing he loved.
The drive and ambition of Jon almost like broke the band.
This is the story of Jon Bon Jovi, told by those who know him best.
If it's a dream, don't wait.
July 12th, 2008, Central Park, New York City. Jon Bon Jovi is on the Lost Highway tour with his band of 25 years, Bon Jovi.
Jon could command an arena or a stadium audience. He had them in the palm of his hands.
The band is at the end of a 9-month tour, and this concert is drawing more than 60,000 loyal fans.
Well, what a way to end up. We started 10 nights in New Jersey and ended up with the biggest show of the year in New York.
Backstage, where other frontmen would be living a sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, 45-year-old Jon Bon Jovi is different.
The rest of the band had a good time, but Jon was all business. It was all serious stuff.
Rock and roll's one thing, but the business is another. His grasp of the business of music was so acute and so global. He merged everything.
He actually had in himself a drive that was unstoppable.
Jon could be living the ultimate rock and roll party lifestyle, but he has somehow managed to avoid falling into the trappings of fame. He rarely drinks or dabbles in drugs.
He's not your, typical flamboyant, crazy, partying, frontman.
He's managed to cultivate this slightly bad boy turn to more squeaky clean rock star and made it work, whereas a lot of other people get attracted to the fact that a lot of rock guys are bad boys.
Leaving his business deals in the balance, Jon heads on stage to perform his latest hit, It's My Life.
Fortunately for us, It's My Life was such a big hit that you got the kids and their parents now. And we've been around a long time, and it's pretty cool to see.
Frontman Jon Bon Jovi gives his usual charismatic and energetic performance of It's My Life, and the audience loves it.
It's My Life is a terrific song. It has an anthemic quality to it.
But instead of heading backstage to join a wild after-show party, Jon and his wife of 20 years, Dorothea, head home to focus on the recently launched Jon Bon Jovi Soul Foundation.
He does a bunch of different things to help the homeless, to help the needy, and he always remembers what it was like to be poor, to come up from nothing.
So how did Jon Bon Jovi become such an unusual frontman? How did he turn one of the most wild and decadent jobs on the planet into a type of corporate leadership role? His business-minded roots may stem from his childhood. John Francis Bon Jovi Jr. was born on March 2nd, 1962, in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, to first-generation Italian-American parents, John Sr. and Carol. In a 2012 interview, John revealed they met while serving in the Marines.
Yeah, my dad John, my mom Carol. My mom was not only a Marine, she was a Playboy bunny. And so I'm the product of two Marines.
The Bon Jovis moved to Sayreville, New Jersey in 1966. John's brother Anthony was born shortly after, and the family later welcomed a third son, Matthew.
So this is John's childhood home, where it all began.
Bill Frank also grew up in Sayreville and hung out with the teenage John.
Up in one of those windows was his bedroom. And we also had some great spaghetti dinners here, courtesy of John's parents. Sayreville was, I would call it a pretty close-knit community. It was very blue-collar, I would say. So it was a cool place to grow up. John's parents, they were always, very encouraging. Not just to John, but to all of us. So that was a great thing to have, especially, I would say, in a town where there wasn't a lot of emotion, but John's parents were a little more open, which was unusual.
As well as emotional support, John's parents instilled the future frontman with a strong work ethic.
John comes from a hardworking, working class background. So his dad was a plumber, and then he was a hairdresser.
Did you ever let your dad know your hair?
Yeah, sure. It'd be like if your dad was a plumber, you'd let him do the plumbing in the house,
John's relationship with his parents was very strong. But his father was certainly working, many hours at that salon to make it successful, and it was successful.
Ambition and hard work had a profound impact on young John, as did another influence, music. As a child of the swinging 60s, he was swept up in the electric folk rock sound that defined the era.
All those Bob Dylan lyrics he deeply, connected to is getting, caught up in that, those lyrics.
John's parents soon recognized their son's fascination with rock and roll.
John was very, very much encouraged by John Sr. and especially Carol Bon Jovi, his mom.
His mom organized for John to have music lessons. But it wasn't love at first sight.
When John was 7, he got a guitar and a guitar teacher who did the complete wrong thing by making little John practice the scales over and over again. The kid got frustrated, ended up throwing the guitar down the stairs, and gave up because he just thought, I want to play music, songs. I don't want to do this boring practicing.
Despite their son's impatience, his parents continued to encourage his love of music.
I never saw any inkling of them saying, well, you should get a job as a car mechanic. He was focused on being a successful musician, even a superstar.
Oh, I don't know. I always wanted to make records from the time I was in school. It's all I was ever going to do.
At home, John's mom continued to reinforce his belief that one day he could make it as a star.
Normally, rock music is the thing that you are listening to really annoy your parents and to rebel. And in this case, his mom, Carol, was into it as well, and they would play the music together. He'd put on a record, she'd be right there, they'd be dancing and singing to it together, so she was totally encouraging him.
But while his mom nurtured his love of music, John began to sense the fame and fortune that came with it.
John saw himself as the person that could lift them into a better situation than they lived. It was almost a very, very Italian-American story where John certainly wanted to make sure that his parents were secure and well and taken care of. And that was part of his drive.
The Italian community and the other immigrant communities that predominated in New Jersey when he was growing up is a group of people who are very motivated. You know, they don't have a lot. They didn't come from a lot. And the idea of coming to the New World is, here's your chance to prove yourself. And I think Jon Bon Jovi really internalized that.
And I think that's why from a very early age, John was a people pleaser. He wanted to take care of those around him. He was a natural caretaker in many ways. And he wanted to thank his parents for giving him so much love and support that he could do the things that he wanted to do. And I think he was a quite responsible child. This was another part of his personality development that emerged very early on. And he was happy to take on the responsibility of hoping to guide the family into a better life.
As John hit his teenage years, he discovered grittier music like Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and Thin Lizzy. The future frontman of Bon Jovi was determined to emulate his heroes and become a rock star. Not only to make a better life for himself and his family, but also because he loved music. To realize his ambitions, he knew he would need to try again to learn the guitar. He asked local musician Al Parinello for lessons.
He got a teacher again who said, okay, let's teach you some songs. House of the Rising Sun, here's how it goes.
John would later attribute his success learning the guitar to Al Parinello's direct and no-nonsense approach. He spoke about the experience in a 2018 interview with Oprah Winfrey.
And he said, you don't know this next week? And I came back and I didn't know it. He said, don't waste my time, man. Just get out of here, leave. That was great. It was the best thing he ever said to me. Because if he coddled me and said, I wouldn't have taken it seriously. But he said, don't waste my time. I learned it. And I learned the next one. I learned the next one. When you learn a song, you start to think about songs. When you think about songs, you want to write songs.
I think he broke things down for John. All right, listen, let's start from here. Instead of learning scales and, practicing till your fingers bleed, John just looked up to him, like, as far as, this is the guy that got me started.
Music was now John's whole focus, and he was intent on mastering the guitar and developing his voice.
He was introverted. Not a lot of talking, not a lot of, philosophy. He pretty much kept to himself. And that made him a little bit intense, as teenagers go.
He had already decided he was going to be in music. That was his whole gig, the kit and caboodle, and just had his eye on the prize.
Although his parents encouraged his passion for music, they began to worry he was falling behind with his schoolwork.
His parents didn't like his performance at Sayreville, so they figured they'd put him in a private school, St. Joe's Metuchen High School. It's an all-boys Catholic school. Kind of straighten him up, give him some discipline.
His new school friend, Will Hurchek, saw how even in a new school, lessons were still secondary to John's resolute focus on music.
He popped into a classroom, and he's like, oh, you play guitar? I play guitar. Who do you like? Like Bruce Springsteen, Southside Johnny, Thin Lizzy. So we started talking music, and within probably 15 minutes, it was, hey, I'm starting a band. Do you want to come over and rehearse and jam and see if you like it? I said, okay. So my mom drove me, my guitar, and my amplifier over to John's house. That was the first playing together.
John formed his first band, Raise, with Will on the guitar.
I was just happy as hell that I found somebody that liked Springsteen and the Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. So we had, that connection.
When the 16-year-old John spotted an early opportunity for success, he entered Raise into the school talent show.
It was a local battle of the bands, and You know, it was his chance to get out there and, you know, in a competition. It's like, are we really going to win? Are we competing here? Him, it was serious. It was serious competition. It's let's rehearse, let's get this together, and let's go out and perform. There was a big buildup. It was wild.
But while John threw everything into the performance, the band failed to impress and came in last in the competition.
It was like a heartbreak.